Don't worry. That's all right. Don't worry.
All right.
Well,
This
good
is
morning.
ridiculous.
Good morning, Wendell Paris.
I can hardly hear you now.
Oh, really?
Right.
Do you have a headset you could put on?
Not
No,
to this.
you're on your computer. Don't worry. You can't hear me. Can you hear me at all?
Yeah, I can hear you, but it's hard to hear you.
Oh,
Can you
wow.
turn up your volume?
I've got it all the way up.
All right, my volume's all the way up.
Yeah, mine is too. So is yours all the way up, Ernest?
My volume is fine.
Yours is good, yeah. So
it's ridiculous. It's crazy.
Well, let's just start this anyway. We'll see where it goes. Okay, my name is Heather Gray. The program is Just Peace, and I'm here with co-producer Ernest Dunkley. And this evening, I'm pleased to say we're talking with Wendell Paris from Mississippi. We're going to learn from him about what's happening in Jackson, Mississippi around this water issue, this tragic water situation in Jackson, Mississippi. Welcome, Wendell Paris.
Oh, thank you so much, Heather and Ernest. It's good to speak with you both.
Well, it's wonderful to have you on our show this evening. I just want everyone to know we've interviewed Wendell quite a bit over the past because of his remarkable career in civil and human rights issues for years, decades actually, in Mississippi and throughout the South, or throughout the country, I should add, actually. So again, welcome, Wendell. So,
well, thank you. I don't know about how remarkable my career is, but it's nice of you to say so.
Well, it is remarkable.
Oh,
so tell us about what on earth is happening in Jackson, Mississippi, Wendell? What?
Well, we're not only do we have a problem with the excessive rain and flooding, but we've had a perennial problem with the failure of the water and sewer systems here in the city of Jackson. That's largely because of the inattention to this system that's anywhere, some folks say it's 75 years old, and others say it's 100 years old. But very little has been done to upgrade the system since it was first installed. So that is causing quite a lot of problems, needs to say, because of the growth that is taking place in the Jackson area. It being the really only metropolitan area, I should say, well, now down on the Mississippi Gulf Coast. But by and large, Jackson has been the only metropolitan community that you've had in the state of Mississippi. And really, the problems that we were having historically are now much more pronounced, that we have blacks running government. You have a black mayor and a majority black city council. And also at the county level, you have blacks that are the chair and a majority of the seats on the Hinds County Board of Commission, which is the governing body. But that has really caused a lot of friction with the folks that are in government at state level. All of these statewide elected offices are held by Republicans, and needs to say they are white. And so the effort has been to try to take as much power away from city government as you possibly could at the state level, since they're not able to win the city back through the electoral process. You can't vote. They're saying blacks are 82%. We're closer to 90% of the population of Jackson. And it's impossible for them to win the seat back where where whites would be in control of government. So the effort is to control city government through state government. And needs to say the laws of the state allow that to take place. An example would be the city passed ad valorem tax increase, tax maybe wasn't ad valorem tax, but a tax increase to be able to address some of the problems of the infrastructure. Now, although it's just the city that voted in the election, the state law is that the state legislature must approve the fact that the city has passed some local legislation to improve the infrastructure. So the only way that the state will approve the city's election to increase to get additional monies for infrastructure development is that the state have control over the commission that must be established for the new monies to come in. So the state government has always said to the black mayors, yes, you have passed the legislation. You have passed the legislation at the local level, but we're not. You have to grant us the majority of the members that are sitting on that commission, or else we're not going to allow it to go through. So most of the black mayors that have been elected since Harvey Johnson, who was the first black mayor elected, refused to do that.
When was that?
Harvey Johnson was elected in early I'd say about 1993, 94, 95, something like that. But since that time, you had just these black mayors, and needs to say with the population.
Oh, Wendell, we lost you. Wendell, you're muted.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
I don't know what happened.
No, I don't know. Go ahead.
Tap to unmute. So now I'm unmuted.
Okay.
Okay. So shall I try to start it? Let me try to start it. I'm saying since the city passed the vote to increase local legislation for support of improving the infrastructure, but the state wants to have control of the number of the members of the folks that sit on that commission, and will not approve it with the recommendation that comes from each of the black mayors. They have not, the state won't approve it because it doesn't give the state appointees the control of the commission. The mayors of the city were not opposed to having someone from state government sit on the taxing authority or commission that's created, but they didn't want to give them control because the state didn't vote on it. It wasn't a state issue. The issue is, well, it is a state issue, I guess, because the state has to prove it because of the law. But the black mayors have argued, we are paying for this. It's our monies. It's not bringing any monies from the state and not requiring any monies of the state for us to put this in place. All it requires is the state to approve what has been put in place. But the state won't approve it because the state doesn't control it. Does that make sense?
Somewhat.
But anyway, that's what the deal is.
All right.
That has kind of been a historical pattern of control of blacks that have taken, once blacks have come to the point where they can take control of communities where you have majority populations. In Mississippi, you still have to go through the state government, even if you are in control of the city, in order to be able to get monies approved through any type of taxing authority. And that legislation probably goes all the way back to the to post-Reconstruction era. And that Mississippi hadn't had a constitutional convention since improvement since 1891. So we're still under those post-Reconstruction slavery laws that were put in place then. And that is basically what's happening here. We cannot get the state to approve the city's residents of the city of Jackson being in control of the resources, not financing, but the resources that will come, the taxing monies that will come as a result of the vote of the people to increase taxes.
Wendell,
So
I
that
just
is
want to
the
ask you,
problem, really.
let me just ask you a question here. Is this unique, the situation in Mississippi compared to other states in the South?
No, that's not unique.
Okay.
That is the control measures that the South largely through and I think we've had a discussion before on the Mississippi plan. But in following the Mississippi plan, that the Democrats that were in government immediately after the Civil War, when they put in place the Mississippi plan, all of that legislation is there. So they put that legislation into those state legislatures across the South.
Explain the Mississippi plan again, briefly, please.
Well, in essence, it said that every Democrat, which would be the white electorate at that time, should feel honor bound to thwart the vote of every Black man, however best they could accomplish it, whether by intimidation or by purchase, or if folks were rowdy and belligerent, then you needed to go ahead and kill them because you had to take back the control of the government. And they recognized with the numbers that Black people had, across the South, that time, I guess South Carolina and Mississippi probably had the largest percentages of Black populations then. And Mississippi still has the largest percentage of Black population, but you're still trying to run these cities in the 21st century under 19th and 20th century laws. And they're not going to have those conventions that would allow for new laws to be instituted because they recognize so much control is granted to them through those, sometimes it's called a Black Codes legislation, but it mostly was through what they call the Mississippi Plan. So they have written into the state legislatures, that control of government would come through the state and not have home rule or local control of government. So that's the case in Alabama clearly, and the case in Mississippi. At one time, Alabama was saying that all legislation had to come through the state legislature, but they had a provision that's called local legislation. And they allowed local legislation could go into place with the approval of the members of the Senate and the members of the House in a local district. Anyone else outside of that district didn't have any say under local legislation. But when Black people started to win and be able to have control of both seats in the House and in the Senate of the local legislation, then they had to change that. So they do some modifications to that law, and that's been historic. That hadn't just started. The underlying problem is racism, and we try to give it all kind of pretty names, but when you start to peel back the surfaces of all of these things that they have come forward with, you will find that that is just not in the South and largely in this country. There are not provision for Black people to participate in government on an equal basis. Equality in governmental opportunities are just non-existent. That's written in. That's all the way back to the Constitution. We really don't have that. So In short,
Wendell, could you tell us a little bit about Mississippi? What is the racial composition in Mississippi?
well, according to, and this is the large problem, Heather. According to the um, whatever done every 10 years, I can't, my mind is gone, to the census.
The census,
According to
right?
the census that's taken every 10 years, blacks comprise about 38% of the population. But now, and especially this came forward in the 2010 census, that there was anywhere from a 22 to a 43% undercount of Black people in Mississippi in the 2010 census. Now, if the census figures show that you are 38%, but you're looking at a 22 to a 43% undercount, then you could see very well that Blacks would be in control of a lot of more counties in Mississippi than perhaps what is associated with Jackson and with the Mississippi Delta. You know, Blacks are in control of both of those counties in what's called the Mississippi Delta. That's those counties that's contiguous to the river. And there's also a sizable Black population in the greater Jackson community, especially in Hinds County. In Hinds County, the Black population is nearing 80%. But the real problem is that now whites have recognized that they were using their own figures, and their own figures were anywhere from 22 to 43% off. So if you have that, then you know that's real cause for concern, because you could look at Mississippi having very close to a 50% white and 50% Black population, and there will be quite a few other counties in Mississippi that will come under Black control. So that's a real problem, and the government caused that problem because it will not get an accurate accounting, or it will not accurately count people for the census. You know, the very few Blacks, well, I'll say Blacks are disproportionately high as takers of the census, and that way they never have been able to get, well, people even that lived on paved roads in streets that had lights on them. Those folks were not counted in the census. So if you're talking about going to rural communities where there is no highway infrastructure, basically so to speak, very, very poor dirt roads, then those folks don't get counted. Or Black population don't get counted.
So what is your impression as far as the real census population?
I really believe that Blacks are anywhere from 48 to 52% of the population of Mississippi. Now that even to say that is dangerous in the eyes of white people.
So Jackson is predominantly Black, right?
Oh, yes.
And what is the percentage again in Jackson, Mississippi?
Well, according to census populations, it's 82%.
82% Black, right? Yeah.
Yeah, it's 82%. Everybody's saying 82, but Jackson is closer to 90% Black.
I see. So Jackson is predominantly Black, and it is the capital city of Mississippi. Is that correct?
Yes, it's the capital city, and it's been under Black control since the mid-1990s. And that's a serious problem in terms of whites in state government.
White issues, right? Okay. So, and the mayor of Jackson, Mississippi, let's just talk briefly about him. His name, please.
His name is Chokwe Anton Lumumba, and he is the son of Chokwe Lumumba. Chokwe was mayor. In fact, he died in office. I guess his son served one term, then one other gentleman served a term. About 10 years ago, he died in office. And so we had a special election, and they elected a minister who didn't work out well at all, and sent the city in further decline because of, reckless spending. And now we have Shokway's son as the mayor. And again, he's running into all types of obstacles at the when he goes to state government to try to get the help that is needed, because even the federal money that could come into Jackson must come through the state government. So the state tries to turn around all federal monies that would benefit low-income people and poor people. That's across the board. It turns down the monies that you could have for healthcare. Don't want it. And when Barack Obama was elected and he put in that money for infrastructure development on the highways, state of Mississippi, we don't want the money. But until such time that the money was released, then everybody's in favor of the money. See, they say in one instance, white people say, we don't want federal money coming in here. But now, Mississippi State and Ole Miss gets more federal money. Those are the two major institutions in the state. They get more federal money than any two schools in this country. I said in this country. I didn't say in the South, in this country. Basically, their budgets are undergirded by federal dollars coming in. But they say in one instance, we don't want any federal money. But in another instance, they recognize if you didn't have federal money coming, you would close both Mississippi State and Ole Miss. So I'm saying people have been allowed to live this hypocrisy related to government all the way back, well, I guess since the nation was founded, So since no one will question anybody on the hypocrisy, especially the church, is not going to, the organized church is not going to question anything that goes on. So this hypocrisy remains. And that's what we have here. You're trying to have a government of hypocrisy. You want to say in one instance it's a democracy, but you don't want people to vote. You want to say that we believe in equal justice under the law. No, you don't. You don't believe in that. You believe in especially white men being able to make the laws, but they don't have to abide by the law. That's the serious problem with Mississippi.
So tell us about the state legislature then. I mean, what is its composition by race?
Well, the state legislature, blacks have a higher percentage than any other state in the nation. In Mississippi's black percentages give them more blacks give us more blacks in the state legislature than any other state. But blacks would range maybe anywhere from maybe a fourth of the members of the state legislature, and less than that as a member of the state senate. So that's the problem. See, when you take it to the state level, then and have to send all of your requests for governance through the state, then that's where the problem is created, because blacks don't have anywhere near the numbers in state government that we should have. And that's largely because of the effort on the part, not only the state government, but the federal government is involved in that controversy of holding down black populations. And being sure that monies that come into the state from the federal government are targeted to communities that's by and large under the control of white governments.
I see.
And that's been a problem not only with Mississippi, state of Mississippi and the government of Mississippi, but with the federal government. The federal government. An example would be, you've heard of the regional planning agencies. the what's the other name? They call them the RPAs and the planning districts, the government planning districts.
These are
Well, these
federal.
These are federal creations. They're kind of like quasi-federal government entities. But the configuration of those districts always they don't say like you don't have, say the counties of the Delta, they are not in one district. Those counties of the Delta are maybe in 3 districts of the planning and development districts, that where the majority of the people sitting on those boards would be white. There are about 6 planning districts in Mississippi. Not a single black is in control of any one of those planning districts.
Wendell, when you talk about the Delta, what are you referring to?
When I talk about the Delta, I'm talking about the counties that are adjacent to the Mississippi River that, by and large, because of the overflow of the rivers in the spring, when you start overflowing in the fall, you're in serious trouble, which was happening now. But the overflow of the rivers in the spring down through the years has brought all of this alluvial material that comprise the largest soil base of the Delta. Now, the Delta may range in, well, let me give you an example. The Alabama Black Belt has a topsoil depth from about 6 to 8 inches. The Mississippi Delta has a topsoil depth about 6 to 8 feet. So it means then that this is very, very fertile soil in this Mississippi Delta. And so it's the place where people were brought to pick the cotton, to grow, well, not to do everything with the cotton except make money off it. So the plantation system that we know about in this country largely targeted those communities where they brought in heavy concentration of slaves to work the agricultural lands. So this Delta of Mississippi, which may be, well, about 18 counties that are considered in the Delta, but they largely look at around from 14 to 15 counties that blacks have control. It's the largest cotton, well, not only cotton, but all row crop production, not all, but basically the row crop production that's done in Mississippi is done in the Delta. It's largely just flat lands, very fertile lands. And the other thing is you have varied sources of water. Not only do you have surface water through the rivers and through creeks and streams, but you have just maybe 2 or 3 aquifers, underground water that has pure water. You don't even need to, well, I guess you would need to chlorinate it, but other than that, it's perfectly pure and good water. So you got a rich supply of soil. You have an abundant supply of both surface and underground water, and you have a growing season that's anywhere from 9.5 to 10 months out of the year. And so if you were to look at growing anything other than cotton, you could make the Delta into one of the breadbasket communities of this country, because it's so fertile. So the resources, the natural resources, the water and the soil, and the weather conditions that allow for you to plant almost year round.
Wow. So I'm going to ask Ernest, do you have some questions before we go on to talking more explicitly about what's happening in Jackson, Mississippi? But do you have a question?
Has done a wonderful job of really showing me what's going on in that area. I really had no understanding as to the mechanisms that were underpinning the that area. And I think if more people really understood that, I don't have a question because it's been made clear. What I see is that this information should be made clear to a lot of people that have no idea of it. And I think most people don't understand why the Delta is important and how long it's been important and how long the strategies that have suppressed it have been going on. And there's so many young people that will tell you, oh, those were that was an olden time. That stuff don't exist anymore.
Oh,
And I've been having a problem running into people, and I mean Black people. I understand why white people, but Black people that really don't know.
right.
And I mean young people, because the older people understand. The old timers, they understand. But I think it comes back to educating people around us, because sometimes we can't do things, but it's good to know what position you're in and why you can't do something at that moment. And it may help you figure out a way to do it. But so many of us are asleep about the dynamics still operating under this machine that's binding us to it. And as long as we have a TV set and can pay the bill for the cable and the car and the house, we sort of let everything else go. And I understand that because you're tired at the end of the day, but we really have to start thinking about ourselves.
Yeah, that thinking of that education is really significant, and the education is really not tied to academia that we need. It needs for folks to get involved, to get an understanding for themselves on what is taking place. Yeah, and you're exactly right, Ernest. Well, even the latest thing we know is the 1619 thing. White people don't want us to know about what happened in 1619. They say because they don't want their children distorted or having a mixed understanding. And that is a big lie. The issue is for us to keep Black people from having a thorough understanding, a working knowledge of how discrimination and how racism has impacted, the development. And let me make sure we put economics up top. How slavery really was the economic engine to make America the great nation that we see being today. And a lot of communities have seen the need to diversify those economies. And Mississippi is one of the last, probably the last state, region, let's say the southern region, to want to move away from agricultural production as the economic engine. They want to keep cotton as king. And, you can diversify into other agricultural entities, soybeans, wheat, corn, all of that. But the effort is to keep a weak mind, strong back economy. And the way that you could be able to keep a weak mind, strong back economy is to make sure that people don't have the working knowledge, grounded education that would allow them to make intelligent decisions for themselves. Now, when you mentioned that older populations, our folk, yeah, we had to learn, how to size up a white man by the way he walked. And we were able to do that. If we heard him say 3 or 4 words, we could tell whether he was, a person you wanted to have some kind of lasting relationship with, whether it was a person that could be trusted. But by and large, Black people have lost those skills. And since we don't have those, that innate ability anymore to determine what's in our own best interest, then we keep making ridiculous and stupid mistakes especially when it comes to government. If we were just think, you have very few instances where black people are killed when you have a black sheriff in place. The black sheriff being the highest ranking uh, policing official in the community. If a president comes into a county with a black sheriff, you can arrest the president. The sheriffs have just that much that much authority. The sheriff also has the authority to deputize people. So you don't find a lot of Klan marches taking place in communities where where you have blacks in control of the policing systems, especially the sheriff's department, because that just automatically stops that. So that presents a problem for folk. But that is the big problem. If we just would take a look at what how these systems impact us. I mean, we even young black men now, they're saying they're looking at maybe a 5 to 10% increase in black men that's going to vote Republican in 2 months from now. And that is insane. That is insane. That's bordering on suicide when we don't participate in the various system that's in place to allow us to make constructive changes.
Wendell,
So,
excuse me, I'm
yeah.
going to ask you a question. This is just a break here. Could you possibly put your dog in another room?
I'm going to do that right now. Hold on.
Okay.
I want all of this audio. Heather.
I don't know if I keep the dog barking in the audio. I guess.
No. I wanted, you may cut it out for the show, but I like to have what he was saying because what he's saying is so profound. And I'd like to have,
absolutely. Absolutely.
Of the unedited version, of what Wendell said in between the dog and everything else,
All right, I'm back.
Sorry, Wendell.
If it ain't one thing, it's another.
Yeah. So go ahead. I want to get back to Jackson, Mississippi,
Okay.
and what's happening with this water situation. So, and it is majority black population. It has a black mayor, and the city is here. It's the capital city of Mississippi, but it's being discriminated against by the government of Mississippi, the legislature and the Senate. Is that correct?
And the governor, yes.
And the government altogether. So, I mean, what on earth? And that's why they can't do anything about the water. Is that correct?
Yes. Well,
could you
again,
explain some of that?
Because a lot of the federal monies that will come in to allow us to make the improvements are matching monies. It's like an 80-20 match. So the city needs a 20% local funding to be able to access the 80% coming from many federal agencies. Very few instances now that you have 100% funding coming through. But I think we're about to get to that because of the severity of the situation and because of the exposure that's coming into Jackson when folks recognize that, it's not the current black administration that's really at fault. The Lumumba administration has been in place for 5 years, and the problem has been in existence for 75 years. So that's what we're facing.
And the problem is with the Mississippi legislature altogether. Is that correct?
Yes, the legislature has control. The way that the laws are.
Oh, we lost you, Wendell. Darn. Wendell, you're muted.
Hello?
Wendell? Okay. So no,
okay.
It's good now.
I don't know what's happening. There is no home rule in Mississippi. The legislature rules. So you can make all kind of decisions at the local level. But if it doesn't meet with the approval of the state government, or state governmental entities, then then it's not allowed, it's disallowed.
Wendell, is that unique? Is that true with other states as well?
Yeah, it was the Nixon administration that put in place the what they call the regional planning agencies. Those regional planning agencies, sometimes they call planning and development districts. The RPAs or the PDGs, both of them serve the same purpose. What you do is you create another level of government that removes the local control. Let me give you an example. You know, Greene County in the Alabama Black Belt, and blacks took control of Greene County in 1969. And when blacks took control, then county governments could apply directly to HUD, or could apply directly to, at that time, it would be HEW, housing, what is that, health, education, and welfare. You know, that's been divided up now, where you got Department of Education. But at the time it was HEW. But that was HEW funding that was coming in that folks could access through the county government. Greene County had its own housing board, and its housing board got funding directly from HUD and the HUD National. Well, as the Black Belt started to take control of those counties, then you needed to have some way where you couldn't access the funding directly. So now they sent all of the monies basically through, what type of monies I'm talking about? For child care expenditures, for elderly funding, for drawing district lines and what have you. That's acceptable if you have to do well, you know, every 10 years anyway, you have to look at the population shifts and what have you. But now those district lines are drawn by the regional planning agencies or the planning and development districts. So any funding that you want to seek at the local level now would come through that planning and development district, by and large, to for you to have access to those particular resources. So with that now new level of government, it means it just pushes the local communities that much further away from having any modicum of control. Let me give you an example. Here in Hinds County, you had workforce development monies coming through what's called at that time the WIA, the Workforce Investment Act. They have upgraded the act. Now it's called WIA. I don't know what WAIA or something like that is the new entity that's in place. All right, when WIA first started, Jackson was able to access the city of Jackson and Hinds County, because of the size of its population, was able to access direct funding through the Workforce Investment Act. But now all of those funds are no longer available to the county and to the city. It has to go through a workforce development board that's comprised of about 18 counties, and needs to say the control of the workforce, of the regional planning agencies, as I mentioned before, is under white control. And so blacks can't just go up to HUD anymore and say, well, we want to get this project funded. Say like in Sumter County, Alabama, when we going over there with the Federation, there was a doctor-patient ratio of 4,000 to 1, 4,000 patients to each doctor. But the doctors would not approve of putting in a local health center. It had to go through the regional planning agency. And the only way that the regional planning agency would approve it is that the local AMA said that they wanted those services available. So the local doctors, all white in Sumter County, said, we don't need anybody else to help provide health care in this county. We don't want to happen in Sumter County what happened next door in Greene County. Greene County was able to get those resources because it came in from 1969. And the Reagan, let's see, no, not Reagan. The Nixon administration probably came in place what about that same time, 68 or something like that. But it passed that legislation to prevent or put in place legislation or another level of government to keep local communities from directly accessing resources from the national level.
I just want to mention you referred to AMA, and that's just so people know, that's the American Medical Association.
Right. I'm saying, can you imagine one doctor's now, a doctor-patient ratio of 1 to 4,000? But here is the AMA that's making the decision not to bring in federal resources to put in place healthcare centers.
Wow.
Healthcare centers. So you got all of this kind of foolishness going on. And it's not foolishness, it is still racism, as Ernest mentioned earlier. You know, it's just called by another name. And that is what the nation is facing. I know we're talking about Jackson, but it's a problem nationwide. And the example would be with that, with the Southern strategy. All of this is the Southern strategy is a takeoff from the Black Codes legislation of the probably 1870s and 1880s. The Southern strategy, you know.
Okay, so explain the Southern strategy.
Okay, the Southern strategy came about during basically the Nixon administration to say that Black people are now getting the right to vote since the passage of the Voting Rights Act. And since that act is now in place, we need to devise us a strategy where we can appeal to the racist nature of white people without saying that it's racist. So the Southern strategy was to develop a coded language, and this coded language would all get back to, and I know this is an unpopular word, but I say it here for emphasis: nigger, nigger, nigger. So you had, and this is the exact words of Lee Atwater, who was the one who really put together, went across the South to put in place the Southern strategy. Lee Atwater said, in 1954, you can say nigger, nigger, nigger. But by the 1960s, you can't say that anymore. So what we have to do is to put some words in place to say nigger, nigger, nigger without saying nigger, nigger, nigger. What words are we talking about? Busing. States' rights. Obamacare. You're not saying nigger, 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 but it translates nigger, nigger, nigger. And so that is the strategy that the Republican Party has been using for now 50 years. And it works very well. You know, you can go back to the old, all the way back to, you know, the laws of the states of the South, where it was, you know, it's against the law for a Black man to marry or to sleep in the same house with a white woman, let alone marry a white woman. And, you know, it looks like, what's his name, Uncle Clarence Thomas, who sits on the Supreme Court, says, it looks like we'd be able to introduce some legislation like that. Can you imagine saying that and you got a white wife? But anyway.
Yeah, that's strange.
You're saying, we going back to this. This boy is so well trained with his white education that he doesn't even see himself as being Black anymore. He, you know, he married to a white woman, so he is white. So, but he's saying the United States needs to go back and look at legislation to determine whether states are not to control who marries who. And I'm saying all of that's back to this, to the elements or tenets that you find with what was called what's called the Southern strategy. How do you appeal to just the raw racist nature of Southern white people to get them to vote a certain way? And it is just not confined to the South now. The Southern strategy has gone nationwide. Why has it gone nationwide? George Wallace, y'all remember George Wallace?
Yes.
Governor of Alabama.
Right.
Well, the Southern strategy is a direct take off from the George Wallace election strategy that he was able to be so successful with in Alabama. And one of those news entities said to him when he was running for president, said, it looked like you're getting pretty good ground in here, Mr. Wallace, and getting a large percentage of the people around the United States to vote for you. He said, yeah, the people around the United States are about to catch up to Alabama. So the same level of racism that we find in Alabama and in Mississippi, we're seeing that taking place all throughout this country. And it's all because of the Southern strategy. I mean, the Republican National Convention has the RNC committee, not the convention. The Republican National Committee has gone all over the country to put Southern strategy legislature in place to suppress the vote. And we'll have to talk about that in another time. But that is exactly what is taking place. But it comes from, and Google the Southern strategy. You get your folks to Google it. I'm not making this up. This is exactly what has taken place. But now they want to say that this is a problem now that Trump is in here. But Trump is just a pawn in this game. They've been doing this all the way back to Goldwater. And so that's what we're fighting is what I'm saying. When you peel off all of this covering and all of this coded language stuff and understand it goes back to downright racism. And I hate to put it that blankly, but I really don't. I don't hate to put it that way because that's what we're dealing with. I just wish that more people, Ernest brings problem a good point. More people need to get involved to the point where they understand what's happening. And when you understand that all of this racism is associated with the Republican Party, I'm not saying that, the Democratic Party had that at one time, but George Wallace put in place a plan to get the white people that were in the Democratic Party in Alabama to lead the Democratic Party following him and ended up in the Republican Party following Ronald Reagan. So the same thing is taking place throughout the country. But now this does not start with Donald Trump. He uses it to the maximum, but he didn't use it any better than, say when Ronald Reagan came in office. He came to Mississippi to kick off his campaign for president of the United States. And he made one sentence that turned the South away from Jimmy Carter. And that one sentence was, the South shall rise again. The South shall rise again. That's the battle cry of the Confederacy. So when he said that, and he said it three times in his speech that was given in Philadelphia, Mississippi, in Neshoba County, in the same county where the three civil rights workers were killed and buried in that earthen dam. That's where he came to kick off his campaign for United States, for president of the United States of America. And he said that three times. When old man Bush Sr., when he won one of those early primaries, I don't know if it was our or just what, but when he won up there, he says, and on to the South, where we shall rise again. The same language that was used by Mr. Reagan was also used by Mr. Bush. And I'm saying, then Mr. Bush came up with the Willie Horton stuff. That's nigger, nigger, nigger. And I'm saying all of these things trace back to the racism that the country has never been able to face or do anything about or want to make any change, because the economic system is so tied to keeping somebody poor and somebody impoverished.
I agree. I just want to ask you, our time is going kind of quickly here. I just want to ask Wendell, are there any solutions?
Yes, there are always solutions. And the solution is, Ernest mentioned that, you got to be able to educate people. People need to be able to educate themselves, which our foreparents did, as to what is going on so that you can make intelligent decisions relative to your life. And a part of the solution would be that you support those candidates that you know are not tied to uh, 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 injustice, are not tied to some racist agenda. And you have to put in place systems that would allow you to identify folks. And they have those systems. The systems are already in place. They just will not use them. See that when you're saying, they could determine within an hour's time whether this policeman is a person that ought to be patrolling the streets, especially in a Black community. There are already systems in place to make those type of determinations. But you will have to develop our own systems. And and when I say we, I'm not talking about Black people. I'm talking about people of goodwill. People of goodwill have to come together around what they know is to be the truth and what they know that must be exposed if this system of government is to remain in place. If it's going to remain in place, you got to remove the hypocrisy. And that got to first start with the church. The church has always condoned slavery, and the church condones hypocrisy. And until you can get the church to make that change, it is difficult to do. Then the systems of government have to do the same thing. That folks have to say, well, this is ridiculous for us to be talking about now, trying to keep folks from registering to vote, because that's not going to work. It's not going to work. You're not going to be able to suppress the vote. If you suppress the vote, then you take away the nonviolent approach to solving these problems. Malcolm X said that. He had a speech. He said, the ballot or the bullet. And Michelle Bachmann, who came along, who was one of the Tea Party people, she said something even worse than that. She said, if ballots won't, bullets will. If ballots won't, bullets will. That's the language that comes from the Tea Party people, especially from Michelle Bachmann. So I'm saying,
so Wendell,
if you go to a ballots won't, bullets will, you got to understand you don't have all of the bullets anymore. It's not like somebody else doesn't have some bullets. And when you're in a battle, you don't go into battle like you've already won a war. You don't know what's going to happen. Some of those bullets going to be fired back at you. But folks have to come to a reality of what is taking place. And I'm saying that reality is going to come into being. Hopefully it will come without a whole lot of bloodshed. Hopefully that won't take place. That people will come to recognize, remove the hypocrisy. That's all. Remove the hypocrisy. You can't say that you're a Christian on one hand, but you're going to discriminate against women on another hand. On the other hand, you can't say, and the Bible's teaching how you're going to come out in the name of Jesus saying that you are a Christian, but you allow all of these unchristian things to take place. Something that's diametrically opposed to the teaching of Christ, but that is what you're using to justify discrimination. And so it is not an impossible solution, but it is a very difficult one. And it's real difficult because it means that the nation got to go all the way back to say that slavery was wrong. And the United States government and the citizens of the United States are not prepared to say slavery is wrong. So, slavery was or is wrong. I say it is wrong. So it's a difficult challenge, Heather, but there are folk, and in the civil rights struggle, we didn't have a lot in the movement days. We didn't have a lot of people participate, but those people that were of a singular mind that we needed to make some constructive change. It was the coming together of those folks across racial lines, across sexual lines, whatever, religious lines, all the people working together for good. And when you have the people working together for good like that, then you can depend on the Lord himself stepping in and straighten it all out, because that's what he does when people work together and treat each other like they want to be treated.
Well, Wendell Paris, I want to thank you so much for this remarkable discussion.
Well,
Thank
again,
you so much.
Oh, thank you both very much. I appreciate you and Ernest and what y'all do. And any way that I can be of assistance in getting the truth out, I'll gladly do it.
Your vast
Okay.
knowledge is always so incredibly impressive, Wendell.
It is. Oh boy.
All right. Well, thank you.
Okay. See
All
you
right.
later. Bye-bye. Thank you. Y'all take it easy.
Okay. Thanks. You too. Is he gone?
No, but I like to have his phone number because I want to call him and talk.
Sure. I'll send it to you.
Yeah.
Is Wendell's still on here, I guess. So I'm going to have to work on this editing. It's gonna be...
Well, like I say, send me a straight copy of just what you got, because he's empowered a lot of ideas. He's spoke about a lot of things that I believe in or understand.
Right.
And he's really refreshed my energies about certain things. So I really would like to personally have a copy of this thing just as it is, with the dog in particular.
I might have to leave the dog in for the recording too.
Well, all right. Or you got to say that that's the dog. We know the dog's there. He won't shut up. Keep the show going. I mean, still.
But the other thing that I realized that I didn't do, I was about to ask toward the end here, but for Wendell to give a little bit of his background, I don't know, he didn't do that really.
His background is his knowledge.
Yeah, right.
A lot of people say they have background and they don't know diddly fuck.
Yeah, right.
That's the whole thing. They say, oh, I did this, I did that, I did this, I did that. And you ask them questions and you don't get anything. Right. No, you don't.
Yeah, right. Okay.
You're not gonna get the truth.
Yeah.
And you're gonna get and then they don't even know the technical part about it. No, I think Wendell, yeah, you could give that. I mean, it's not saying that you shouldn't give his background, but I'm saying the manner in which he speaks. I mean, I don't know that Jesus Christ had to give his background or Muhammad had to give their background.
That's a good point.
So, and George Washington's background only makes him a slave driver.
Yeah, right. That's true.
So, background, yeah, it's important. It lets us know who we're dealing with. All
right. So I'm going to end this then. I'll spend the rest of the day doing the editing and so forth for the program. So,
yeah. Yeah, please, a copy of that and Wendell's number, and I'll be set.
I'll send you his number. Let me end this. I'll send you his phone number. Okay.
Okay.
All right. Later.
Have a lovely.
You too.